Hi everyone, I'm Ananda Puchta. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the country director for Ally Global Community in Brazil. I'm delighted to be here with you at RISE. Before we start our session, I want not only to express my gratitude for being here with you, but also share my solidarity in these difficult times. We're facing the worst pandemic of all times, and resilience, collaboration, and solidarity are urgent if we want to rise up as better human beings. As a Brazilian going through similar difficulties as India is facing right now, it wouldn't be possible to start our amazing panel without sending my love to all who have experienced loss in these difficult times. And that's why events like this are so important right now. To remember us, a large and diverse LGBTQ community that, even in difficult times, we always find a way to rise together. As we embrace our most authentic selves, the path to equality always moves forward. And that's why we say, be different, be you, the world will catch up. And bringing your whole self to work, it's easier said than done, right? But it certainly helps when you have leaders who exemplify the behavior and encourage you to do the same. Peeps share their beautiful journey of discovering and living one's true self every day. This is a real-life example of how authentic leadership helps employees flourish and encourages them to be more trusting, open, and willing to be their true selves, even or in some cases, especially at work. Along with their role as head of global markets technology, core engineering strategic programs at Credit Suisse, Pippa Bunce is co-chair of the firm's EMEA LGBT+ and Ally network. Do share your questions via the chat box, and Pips would be happy to answer them after the session. Let's give a warm welcome to Pippa Bunce.
Everyone should be able to bring their whole selves to work, regardless of sexuality, race, or gender. That is why here at Credit Suisse, we are proud to be supporting the LGBT community.
I can imagine how it must feel to not be able to be yourself, because for a very long time, I felt like I couldn't be myself. I didn't realize how much effort I was putting into hiding who I am, and it's only since I've been more authentic that I feel like I'm closer to achieving my potential and doing some of the things that I'd like to do.
When I became an ally, I was, as a lot of people probably are, a little bit hesitant at first in terms of what it really meant, but also very conscious of not doing the wrong thing, not saying the wrong thing, not using the wrong terminology. I think one of the big differences is the fact that I've learned that actually it's okay to sometimes get it wrong, and it's better to try than to hide behind it and not acknowledge it at all.
The Ally program provides a sense of community and highlights the bank's commitment to create and support a diverse, open, and inclusive environment where all employees, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity, can feel comfortable, maximize their professional growth, and contribute to the bank's success.
But the impact still is that people understand that you are taking these type of things very seriously. So they behave, they don't make stupid jokes, they don't make stupid remarks. They understand that, from my perspective, this will not be accepted.
It's taught me to be open and honest with myself. It's taught me to support others and listen to others and empower others.
And this is why being an ally is of critical importance, because allies can help set the tone, can make an LGBT member feel comfortable, secure, welcome in the workplace, that they can be who they are, that they can bring them whole selves to work.
Love is love. It's unfair to certain people if we don't provide a safe environment and comfortable way to let them be themselves.
The message, the overall message we want to give employees is that we really embrace diversity, that we are an inclusive employer.
I remember when I was first asked to become an ally, and I thought it was in some ways a silly question because I thought of course I was an ally. And then I realized what that meant was that there was a request for me to be a part of a distribution list, to have this sticker on my office, to really be a visual presence for the LGBT community.
Now not only do we have a public mailing list, but we have over 3,000 allies globally that support the LGBT network.
It's really taught me to be proud of who you really are and to be authentic to your true self.
And I would like to just reach out to everybody who's involved in the LGBT program for Credit Suisse. I think it's great the work you're doing. It sets a real example across the organisation, and I encourage everybody else to join in and sign up as an ally for what we're doing.
Hello there everyone, and thank you so much for joining us, and I'm sure the technology is going to all work seamlessly now. I guess first of all, thank you so much Ananda for that really lovely and sincere, powerful introduction, and I would absolutely echo all of your words, right? Sending, as are all of us, so much love, solidarity, respect, and our thoughts are with everyone suffering at this moment in this terrible pandemic, so thoughts are with you. I guess first and foremost, thank you so much for joining the session today, for this one, all the previous ones, and all the ones to come. I absolutely know we've got some incredible speakers, some amazing content, and I'm certainly really excited to hear from everyone. And also, I'm really pleased for everyone joining today, because it's this collective group that are really driving and making so much difference. So today we're going to talk about being yourself and making sure, being authentic, and the world will absolutely catch up. So let me see if the technology is going to work, which I'm sure it is. Okay, thank you. Hopefully folks can see some of the slides. Be yourself and the world will catch up. I guess, we're going to talk about a range of different things here, touching on authenticity, allyship, the spectrum of different identities, intersectionality, and so much more, because this is all about, these things drive so much positive change. Very brief introduction to myself. So as you previously heard, I'm a director at Credit Suisse, also head of our investment banking technology strategic programs, so a silly long title. But I'm more proud, impressively, to be co-chair of our EMEA LGBT and Ally network, because as we'll see shortly, that is a topic particularly close to my very own heart, because I know firsthand the difference this makes and the difference that this drives in terms of building an inclusive and open-minded culture within the workplace and within society. I do a lot of work with external firms, so I'm an ambassador for 𝘗𝘬𝘬𝘦𝘐 for outstanding diversity role models, Trans in the City, Proud Professional Parents, Gender Identity Research Society, and United Nations. So lots of acronyms, but a lot of work inside Credit Suisse and outside. And more so, I'm incredibly proud to be an LGBT ally, because I think absolutely we all stand together. However you identify, whatever group you're part of, irrespective, we are all allies together, and I think that builds that inclusive, cohesive culture that we aspire to. From a personal perspective, I'm gender fluid and non-binary, so hence both of those identities are part of the T spectrum. What does that mean? Gender fluid, I don't really know how I'm going to express on a given day until I wake up. Sometimes it might be more on the masculine end of the spectrum, other times more feminine, other times in the middle. I really do not know. And for me, it's that gender expression to the outside world is incredibly important. Non-binary, for me, again, I don't identify as purely male or I identify as purely female. I'm a mixture of both, and I'm somewhere in the middle. So I don't subscribe or buy into the binary male or female identity perspective. Personal levels, I've been married to my lovely wife Tina for over 25 years. We've been blessed with 2 children who are now 24 and 21. So I feel incredibly old. And outside CS as well, I do a lot of work speaking in Parliament, working with the Government Equalities Office, the BBC, and many external firms. And I think a key thing is I am so honoured and so proud to work alongside so many amazing people, both those within Credit Suisse helping drive the cultural change that we're driving, as well as those in the outside world across different firms, because honestly, A, I know, and B, I see the impact of this work. So I think to everyone here, absolutely, these events and you being part of these and all the speakers and just attending, is so amazing, because that drives the massive, largest cultural shift possible. So, thank you so much for those attending. Thank you so much for those contributing and seeing what we've got in store. There are so many different topics we need to touch on. But one of the key ones is the power and necessity of authenticity. It plays into everything that we do, how we act, how we interact, how we form relationships with other people, but also what we stand for. I'm a firm believer that everyone should be open and honest and out and proud and loud about who they are. If I had one bit of advice for my younger self, it would be really vocal, be really proud of who you are and what you are, because that is so, so important. And authenticity drives the heart of that. And the biggest catalyst for that is allyship, making sure that you have an environment and a culture where everyone is absolutely encouraged to be their true, authentic self, because A, that empowers people to do so, and B, it builds that platform for inclusion of everybody. And, what does that look like in real life? That is really the difference between a firm or a workplace or an environment where people feel that they're in a safe space to be their true, authentic self, versus not having that. You then have all the other worries and microaggressions that would be effectively stopping someone being their authentic self. And I think for me, we'll touch on this in a second, I certainly have lived in both sides of that coin, knowing the difference between not being out in the workplace and society versus the positive impact of doing so. And I think it really, really matters to me, because, I've certainly lost many friends through suicide, because, these people didn't feel that they would ever be accepted or included in society or workplace or whatever, because who they are, because how they identify, because who they love. And I aspire to live in a world, right, where everyone is encouraged and able and safe to do so. So for me, it really is a difference between life and death, having seen people, rather take their own lives than be their authentic self. So fostering that environment is so, so, so important. So I would say absolutely, please do all be proud of who you are and be proud of what you are. We're all the same. We're all uniquely different. And I think the more people that step up and encourage and become their true authentic self, it leads the way. It helps others behind us do exactly the same thing. And I think things to help you do that, building a supportive environment in the workplace is so, so key, right? We heard from some of the people on the earlier video about the importance of the Ally program, the importance of allyship, and how that fosters that authentic environment where people can be their true selves. We need to make sure that we're celebrating and not tolerating diversity. So whether that's, mouse mats, stickers, screenshots, email signatures, the language used, all of these things in the workplace, all of these things, whether working from home or in the office, they drive so much difference. Because if you're one of these people looking around in your firm, assessing, is it a safe space to come out? Are you going to be supported? Are you going to be accepted? That visibility internally and externally is key. And I think one of the things we also find really important is education. Educating all of your allies across the entire firm as to the different identities, the challenges faced, the nuances between the different identities, and just fostering that allyship and concept where people can come out and be their authentic self, making that positive and public communication to the external world, whether that's via articles or social media or presentations or whatever. That's incredibly important. And partnering with amazing groups like Stonewall and other like-minded groups, that's really key, because you do not need to reinvent the wheel yourself every single time. And I think a lot of people talk about authenticity and allyship, but it's also important to talk about what an ally does not have to be. They do not have to be an expert, a senior leader. They're absolutely not the inclusion police, and they don't have to be perfect. Everyone's going on a learning journey, understanding and comprehending different nuances, challenges, identities. So no one's perfect. So I think the important thing is to focus on, you don't have to be any of these things to be a good ally, but what you do need to do is make sure that you are listening to other people's stories and building that empathy and compassion, celebrating the work being done by other people, increasing the visibility of other people within the LGBTQI community, and effectively using your privilege to bring other people in, whether it's sponsoring, advocating, and a really important thing, calling in any micro behaviors or microaggression. If you are hearing things or banter or language, etc., that is not appropriate, allies, absolutely, their key part is making sure that they call that out, because that type of thing is absolutely not acceptable. So it's all about fostering that inclusion and belonging. And I think, certainly from my own journey, I knew I was somewhat different at probably 4 or 5 years old, right? I was happy in myself and clothes, etc., but I needed more. I also needed different gender identities and expressions, and I'd also need clothes and dresses. And, I was fortunate in that I had a family that was supportive of that. So I knew from an incredibly young age, but I think it takes a lot more courage sometimes to sort of come out in a more corporate professional environment. And for me, it took me quite some time before I felt empowered and confident and safe enough to actually come out to the outside world and to come out to the corporate financial workspace about my true, particularly for me, my gender identity and my gender expression. And that for me was really where it brought to life the importance of allies, because it's incredibly scary. You're looking around and deciding, are you going to be accepted? How will it affect your friendships, your career, your chances of promotion? Will you be ridiculed? All that type of things, right? And those legitimate worries go through your head. And it's only through knowing you've got a very strong allyship sense of community within the workplace that gives you that confidence to come out. So I think, it was incredibly emotional. It absolutely blew me away, the actual impact of allies reaching out and showing their love and sincerity and support and compassion. I was so touched by that. And, I don't think I quite prepared myself for that level of sort of impact. I hoped there would be support, but seeing that come into life and knowing the difference that makes was absolutely seismic in terms of for someone coming out and being their authentic self in the workplace. And equally coming out in the personal life, right? That none of these aspects of coming out is a singular thing. You're constantly coming out to different people or different clients or different vendors or different members of your family, etc. So it's never a one-stop thing. So it's really, really important to sort of own your identity, be proud of who you are, and not live your life for someone else. Just be authentic and be true to who you really are, because it makes such a difference. In a lot of cases, this can make the difference between life and death. And, talking about the complexities of the different identities and the challenges, even looking at the trans side, right, there are so many different identities within there. And if you look across the whole LGBTQI spectrum, there's even more, right? So it's really, really important to foster that environment where everyone understands, or at least comprehends and, understands a lot of the different identities across sexuality, across gender identity, across gender expression as well. And in terms of tokens, labels, tags, and what's correct and what's not, I think, the key thing is ask them what they're, the pronouns that they use, how they identify, etc. It's so much better to ask someone a very, straightforward question and respect their identity rather than assuming or possibly getting it wrong and misgendering them or using the wrong language. That's really important. And as to the prevalence, we're seeing typically millennials, Gen Z, 20% or more identify as LGBTQI+, or somewhere on that spectrum, 12% identifying as gender non-conforming, so trans, non-binary, gender fluid. That's a lot of individuals that we need to make sure that we're building an inclusive culture in the workplace and within society. And I think the more people that do embrace their true authenticity and their true self, it's really important to make sure that they feel in a safe space to do so. And in doing so, that helps so many more behind them to also stand up and actually be their authentic self. I'm not going to go through all the different acronyms within there, but obviously there's a lot of different identities, and it's key to make sure that we take into account all of them. And intersectionality, equally such a key point. It's so key to make sure that your networks and groups and education caters for all different forms of identity, whether it's your LGBT network partner, with your gender network, with your BAME and ethnicity network, with your mental health network, with your, intersectionality is a key thing, and we need to make sure that all of the different networks and silos are collaborating together to make sure that everyone, does feel included and the different identities within that. And I'm not going to go too much into this detail given the time, but one of the things that we love using in the boardroom, in schools, across our allies is, just getting across to our 60,000 staff, etc., 4 simple constructs: gender identity, gender expression, biological sex, and sexual orientation. These are the 4 things that all the different identities can be boiled down into. Identity purely, how do you identify yourself in your head? How do you feel? your gender expression. How do you express to the outside world, whether it's clothes or makeup or mannerisms or whatever? Biological sex, you know, your chromosomes, your organs, if you've had gender affirmation surgery, may be changed, etc. And finally, sexual orientation. Who are you romantically or sexually attracted to? People of the same gender, different gender, both genders, or neither gender. But the key thing here is, you know, these are 4 constructs. You cannot infer one from the other. And also each has its own sliding scale, hence why there's so many different sub-identities within LGBTQIP, SSA, and the whole long list. It's key that everyone feels included and feels safe within their work environment to come out and be their authentic self. Why is it important? I'm not going to go into all of these stats, but this is just a few of some examples. Right, 35% of individuals hide their LGBT identity at work because they worry about discrimination. 45% of trans people have attempted suicide. 22% of LGBT people have attempted suicide. 31% of non-binary people or 18% of trans people don't or are not able to express themselves authentically in the work. 46% are closeted at work. More than 4 in 5 trans young people have self-harmed, and over 3 in 5 LGBT people. You know, these are the sorts of statistics that we are really trying to change. We want to create a culture that is inclusive to all, so that people do feel able to be their authentic self. Yes, there's so much more we can do, right? But even within Credit Suisse and many other companies, we've got over 5,000 active and engaged allies. We're driving that cultural difference. We're promoting that discussion within the workplace. We're educating our allies and engaging people in those diverse topic conversations, giving the education to the staff, to the support managers, to D&I, to HR, absolutely imperative. As is having role models at every level, right? The more you can showcase the fact that people can be their true, open, authentic self in the workplace, you know, that is the best way to send the signal that others can also do that. And I think having the Ally program as an active program is one of the key things in driving that cultural change. Intersectionality we've touched on. We need to make sure that all different identities are represented. Things such as healthcare, making sure it's fully trans inclusive, supporting non-binary pronouns, working with other organizations that are doing so much good work in this field. These are really, really important, as are how inclusive are your policies. Reverse mentoring, really good example. You know, I'm fortunate enough to have our EMEA CEO as my mentee, and a lot of the LGBT population at Credit Suisse have someone from the senior board as one of their mentees. It allows you to impart to them the lived experience of being LGBTQI, what are the challenges you've faced, and in doing so, it gives them the life exposure that how can they step up to help make the difference. It really makes them comprehend the importance of having an LGBTQI inclusive company and how they can help drive that change. So many things that people can do, and I think, you know, we always encourage everyone to be visible, to be proud of who they are, attend events, support the initiatives, be passionate and be compassionate, because they're really, really, really important. And listen and ask questions. I always say to people, get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because that's the best place. If people are learning new things, if they're comprehending, if they're empathizing, that's the best way to really understand the lived experience of those around them. And in doing so, they can step up and promote that authentic environment where people feel safe to be perhaps different, to be someone that may not have come out before, just to feel supported and included. And I think finally, be the change that you want to see. I think everyone standing up, anyone that has the courage to come out and be authentic, and also everyone that has the courage to stand up as an active and engaged ally to drive that change, they are being the change that I think everyone wants to see, and that is so, so, so important. And finally, make sure that we are celebrating diversity and not tolerating, because there is a key difference between those two. And I think if you do all of those things together, you create that sense of belonging, which really instills the narrative. People should stand up, people should be authentic, and they will be celebrated and they will be included for doing so. And I would hope in doing so, the world will then eventually sort of catch up with that. Diversity really needs to be celebrated, not tolerated. I think on that note, I'm going to move over to some Q&A, and I thank you for your time. That is good. That's good. Thank you. Hopefully that's been of use to some people. And honestly, I cannot overestimate enough, the importance of allyship, the importance of people standing up and being authentic to themselves, because it really does make the massive, massive difference. And I know that's not always easy, right? But I think in doing so, you are just helping so many other people. And I think, we've seen so many positive examples of where allyship has been a tipping point between someone being empowered and feeling, confident enough to come out, and seeing the positive switch in how they behave and how they're performing and how engaged they seem in the company, and all of those positive aspects. It's incredibly rewarding to sort of see that change and see that difference from people just purely by stepping up and being their true authentic self, as opposed to sort of hiding and not being their true authentic self. So I think the cultural workplace and what we foster there is really, really important. Okay, so one of the questions has come in. What can I do to give the community comfort and confidence that I can be an ally? I think the key thing with giving people the confidence to be an ally is make sure that you are giving them the information that they need to become a better ally. So whether that's education, whether that's guides, and just so that they feel comfortable with the topics that they're going to be talking about or need to engage in. I think in doing so, they will be able to step up so much better as an empowered and informed ally, because quite often a lot of people are worried about stepping up or speaking up because they might not understand some of the topics or some of the language or some of the nuances. So I think the more you can instill that sense of education in people, it really, really empowers them to step up more so as an active ally. And I would say also, please do not underestimate the impact of stepping up as an ally. That really does make such a difference. And I can guarantee you, individuals and the entire community will be so thankful for people stepping up as an ally. Whether it's putting things on your email signature, whether it's showing stickers, whether it's you speaking out, whether it's things you put on social media, all these little steps go to make up such a difference of the difference that an ally does actually make. I had no question. So what is your message to gender fluid non-binary teens who are not out, since such entities are not yet well understood? I think my message to anyone, to any identity that's perhaps not as well understood at the moment, so I think gender fluid non-binary teenagers might be a good example, but obviously there's others as well, is be proud of who you are. I think the more people that step out as those identities, the more people will understand, the more people can sort of comprehend, and the more sort of, I guess, the higher prevalence of that. Because I can absolutely guarantee you, and I know for a fact, there are so many people of various different identities, whether it's gender non-conforming, gender fluid, non-binary, and a lot of people are worried about stepping up and stepping out. But I think with the occurrence of workplaces particularly becoming much more inclusive, much more sort of inclusive of different identities, I think it's really important that people do seize that opportunity and use that platform to embrace their true authentic self. So I guess my advice would literally be, stand up and be your true authentic self, but give those people as much support and as much comfort as they need. They've got to only step out and be out and authentic if they feel comfortable in doing so. But I think anyone that's wanting to go down that route, A, absolutely, I so celebrate them for doing so, but B, it's important to give them as much support as they need in doing that. In the last few years of leading this work at Credit Suisse, are there any particular stories of homophobia celebration you came across that you would like to share? I think one of the key things I always like to take away is, the positive impact from what I've seen. The amount of people stepping up and coming out, particularly in the workplace, more so, as a result of having allies around them and having the support of the ally program. I think certainly we've got ally programs in every single region now. So obviously we operate in 100 countries or so, and each of them have got their own local ally center, but it's all part of a global program. I think seeing the uptick in the amount of people that are open and out in the workplace because of the concept of allies, because of knowing that you've got allies around you in the office, because it's sort of much more understood and accepted, and people feel far more included. the uptick in the amount of people coming out and open in the office space is really, really rewarding, because all of those people are then living their true authentic life, rather than before that you may have had some that were out personally but they wasn't out in the corporate workplace, etc. So I think one of the really nice sort of celebration impacts I see really is just the number of people that are stepping up and coming out. And that's not even just within Credit Suisse. What I've seen even from the work that we do on social media or external publications, that in itself quite often encourages so many other people to step up and embrace their true self, in whether it's their workplace or within their family or in society, because they absolutely see it and say, well, it's worked for them, it's not a problem, we should be proud of who we are, I'm going to step up and come out. So I think that's definitely one of the positive points. I think on the homophobia side, or transphobia or biphobia, I think the good thing with that is having allies, having people aware of these topics and aware of what's banter and what's not appropriate language. People feel empowered to step up if they hear anything, and again, that's not even just in the workplace. They feel empowered to have those conversations. So if they do hear something inappropriate, they are much better equipped to stand up and call that stuff in, to say to the person, did you know what you just said there is incredibly homophobic or biphobic or transphobic? How would you feel if that was said about you? Did you know that that's not the right language to use? They feel, they are educated and informed as to what things to call out and the better ways to call that type of stuff out or call it in. I have another question here. So in a heteronormative setup, sexual and gender minorities find it exhausting to continue to educate others. What is the balance between educating others versus expecting self-education? How do organizations transition from the former to the latter? That's a really, really good question. And I think that really comes down to the individual. Some individuals are much more keen to step up and be the voice and sort of drive that change, whereas equally, and quite rightly so for them, other people do not feel comfortable doing that or do not want to do that. They just want to live their life but be accepted as and who they are. So I think it's about giving people the choice. It's about providing the education so that people can inform themselves and gain insight into lived experiences and what the differences are and what some of the different challenges are between the different identities, but equally it's about giving a platform to the other people that might want to step up, that might want to be speaking out, that might want to get much more involved in the networks or the change that's being driven. So I think one of the things we find works well is, having as part of our ally programs within each region, you can have an engaged set of committee and working group, but people that really want to step up and go above and beyond. Equally, you'll have allies that literally just want to have the email signature and show their support for the community, and all different points in between. All of these people are really, really valuable. Allies come in so many different shapes and forms and what they want to and what they feel comfortable doing. So I think it's important to recognize that everyone has their comfort zone, that they feel happy and comfortable stepping up, but it's all about making and doing the right actions towards being a better ally. So I guess it's really down to, letting those individuals decide. Yes, you absolutely do not want to force onto the same group of people the exhausting work of always having to educate other people, but equally those that want to, you need to make sure you give them the platform. So I think, good question. I know that there's not a simple answer, but I think it's all about, giving people the choice. Those that want to continue and those that, feel comfortable doing so, give them the opportunity. Equally, those that don't, then there's ways that you can educate and inform those within the firm or within society about the work going on. Even newsletters and things like that. It's a really good opportunity it's a light touch way to inform all of your staff and all of your allies within a firm about what's happening, some of the problems that are being faced, some of the sort of things that need to be celebrated because they're really good steps forward. Communications and newsletters are a good way to sort of get that light touch set of information across to all of your allies, and if people then want to step up and get more involved, then absolutely they can fill their boots, but it's their choice. I think I may have gone over time there, but I think I am done unless there was any other questions. I would say thank you everybody for your time, and thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the sessions.
Thank you, Pips, for your inspiring, powerful presentation. Authenticity is everything and it's key to our community. So thank you for being part of this.